Black people want there to be more police. You know who doesn't? And these are the people who also fire me up, Buck. Woke white people who never have any idea, like Joy Behar, of what the real world is like. These are the biggest enemies in America today.
There's also the ongoing lectures that we get about gun control. And I'll just tell you this. All of their gun control ideas, every single one that they push, even the ones that might for a moment, and this goes back to earlier in the week when you had the actor, Matthew McConaughey.
All right.
Speaking in the White House, even some of the things that they say, well, that sounds at first like that's not that bad an idea. You look into it, and it's usually a combination of useless and annoying. Annoying to law-abiding gun owners, and useless from the perspective of criminal justice and trying to stop any violent crime. Biden went on Jimmy Kimmel last night, and I do find it depressing, because I remember growing up, I didn't watch a lot of the late-night comedians growing up. I did occasionally watch Leno, for whatever reason. I never thought Letterman was funny.
Oh, I loved Letterman.
I know. You know, Clay.
We've talked
You're
about
right
this.
about
you
a
have
lot,
poor
but
taste in your
sometimes,
late night.
Sometimes you go off the rails. I'm here to keep you honest. I was more of a Leno guy when I was a kid, but I do remember that it was jokes. Like, it was just meant to be funny, and it wasn't. And you turn on now, and I try not to do this, but you watch Colbert, Kimmel, any of those late night comedians, and with the exception, Fallon is not as much. I will say, I've noticed that he's not venomous partisan on a regular basis, or if at all. But the other ones completely play to that script. And Kimmel, I mean, if you're the president, you haven't done a real interview in 121 days, to go on Jimmy Kimmel's show, there's just something. I just think it's kind of unseemly. I think that it's pathetic that this is the best the leader of the free world can do, is to go on the Jimmy Kimmel show, to be asked questions by let's say, an unlettered fellow, not a particularly astute political observer. As much as I may have celebrated the Man Show back in the day, I didn't think that this would be the guy that one day I'd want to be hearing important political questions discussed with the president.
The Man Show was amazing. We've had Adam Carolla on. And look, I think your point is well made right here. 121 days, whoever you go on with. I would feel the same way if Joe Biden was like, hey, I haven't done an interview in 121 days, and now I'm going to go on The View, or
yes,
I'm going to go on Regis and what's that show called now? Like Seacrest and Ripa or whatever
it is. I watch none of
Brian
those
and
things.
Kelly.
I am militantly anti those shows.
But if I would feel the same way in general. Now, if Biden were doing interviews with everybody and he wanted to go do late night as well, go for it, right? Like, you're trying to communicate with as large of an audience as you can. But that's the you break 121 days. And by the way, I give credit to Kimmel. I mean, that's a great get, right, for him. I don't begrudge a late night host for asking. I mean, if Joe Biden had broken 121 days of silence and suddenly we get a call and they were like, hey, Joe would really like to come on the Clay and Buck show, we'd have been like, have at it. Now, we would have asked him some tough questions, but we would have had him on, right?
Here is some of what went on last night, where it wasn't I watched the whole interview. It wasn't funny, so start with that. And Biden is clearly in cognitive decline, not impressive, never has been impressive, but obviously now too old for the job. But anyway, we know all that. But here's some of the stuff that was being discussed.
Is that your take when you speak to these guys and women behind the scenes, that is there any honesty? Do they acknowledge that they would like to do something?
Well, I think many of them do. I get in trouble for saying this, but I get on, we have very different views on a lot of things, but I've always had a straight relationship with the Republican leader, Mitch McConnell. He's a guy that when he says something, he means it. I disagree with a lot of what he says, but he means it.
We're getting talk about how there needs to be action taken on guns, and then we sit here and we say, okay, we go through this every time. They're shouting about the NRA is evil and gun owners are bad and all this stuff. We go, all right, what do you want to have happen? What do you want to be done here? And then they start talking about background checks. And they'll say, we need background checks. And then leave out that 95% plus of firearms transactions that occur in this country do have a background check, and that a lot of mass shooters, unfortunately, along with other people that go on to commit any kind of a criminal act, pass an initial background check. So it's just not good policy. But I feel like a frustration watching this interview with Biden and Kimmel, because his audience it's a lot of low information voters, specifically on the issue of firearms and the Second Amendment. And they really just get very comfortable, Clay, with this notion of Republicans don't care about all the death from gun violence in this country and aren't willing to do something because we're all owned by the NRA. I think the NRA declared bankruptcy 2 years ago. And then there's just the really dumb stuff that is said about guns that we're all supposed to ignore, Clay. This is another part of this. This is the ritual. This is the system, the what we go through, the cycle of, oh, there was a bad incident with firearms somewhere in the country. Statistically, it's very rare. I mean, they talk about, for example, the spike in mass shootings that happens at any given year. There's something like, in an average year, 20 to 30 mass shootings that occur in the country, or active shooter mass shootings. It's, definitions can get a little bit blurry here. It's a country of 330 million people. I mean, I think it's tough for people to understand, until they actually look at these numbers, what rarity actually means. I mean, you're getting into the realm of, and usually even in all these mass shootings, it's less than 50 people killed in the entire year from those mass shootings. So while the emotional impact is enormous, and while the psyche of the country, and obviously for the community and the families involved, it's devastating, in terms of a criminal justice and systematic approach to dealing with these things, it's incredibly hard. It's like you're trying to deal with lightning strikes in terms of probability. It is very, very rare. And so then what you actually see is, well, they want to deal with the daily commonplace millions and millions and millions of lawful, legal firearms transactions, Second Amendment rights, protected activity. And then you just get these takes that show what's really going on here, which is, for a lot of Democrats, the Second Amendment is just a chance to say Republicans are racists and bad people. And that's really more than anything else, that's what matters to them. And a perfect example of that would be, I do agree with you, by the way. I think you could argue the dumbest person who speaks about politics for a living on television is probably Joy Behar. I think that's a fair, I really do. I think that's fair to say. I mean, people can argue with me, but I would feel confident with that one. Listen to this take about guns.
Here's the thing. Once black people get guns in this country, the gun laws will change. Trust me.
Can I just start, Clay? The numbers on this? There are at least 10 million black Americans in this country who have guns. And everyone who's a Second Amendment advocate likes people of any background, persuasion, ethnicity who are lawful gun owners to enjoy their Second Amendment rights. But just this notion that there are no black people with guns in America, which is what she's saying, is just crazy. I mean, it's
bonkers. It's banana land insanity. Evidence of how little Joy Behar knows about the larger world. I mean, there are probably thousands and thousands of black men and women listening to us right now who have guns, right? I mean, like we could open up
some of them maybe cleaning their Glock right now, or stripping down the AR-15.
We can just open up phone lines, I guarantee you right now, and say, hey, only black people who are gun owners, you can call and respond to Joy Behar. Burgess Owens, by the way, who is doing a really good job. I want to make sure I get this right. He represents the 4th District in Utah. He also, by the way, Buck, former NFL player.
We go way back.
Super Bowl champ. Good dude. This was his response. He shared this clip and said, Joy, hate to be the bearer of bad news, but, quote, black people already own guns. We are also capable of getting an ID, driving cars, and using the internet. Now you know, which is a funny, sarcastic response, but it's such a dumb thing that she said that. And by the way, she's lecturing a black woman about this, so I don't know who the guest was on that day. But Joy Behar deciding to lecture a black woman about when black people can actually get guns. No, in fact, the data reflects that some of the highest percentage in the last couple of years of gun purchasers has been black people who are living in inner city neighborhoods overwhelmingly and suddenly aware that they aren't protected by police in the same way that they were before the George Floyd incident, which is why overwhelmingly Black people want there to be more police. You know who doesn't? And these are the people who also fire me up, Buck. Woke white people who never have any idea, like Joy Behar, of what the real world is like. These are the biggest enemies in America today. It's woke white people who are totally clueless and destroying this country.
Conservatives are constantly arguing for law-abiding people, all people, and law-abiding Black Americans to be able to enjoy their Second Amendment rights, including the protection for themselves, for their families. By the way, just as a random example, there was a woman, a Black single mother, Philadelphia resident some years ago, who made a mistake, drove into New Jersey, pulled over by a state trooper for a minor traffic thing, but she was a recent concealed carry permit holder, which is easy to get in Pennsylvania, because she had been robbed recently, and she's a single mother, 2 children, and, you know, the liberal state of New Jersey was thinking about sending her to prison for 10 years, Clay, because when the cop pulled her over, she said, I have a firearm in the car, because she, in her concealed carry class, was told, make sure the officer knows, and she didn't even realize she had pulled off on an exit on the highway, didn't think about it. You know who came to her defense right away? Conservative gun rights groups. You know who was saying, how dare you threaten to send this woman? First of all, the laws in New Jersey are stupid on guns, but put that aside. This woman, this Black woman, single mother of 2, you're going to send her to prison. Look what that'll do to her kids. She's a law-abiding person. I think she actually had worked in security. Conservatives rushed to her defense right away. I mean, you see this play out time after time across the country, but who is disarmed and at risk? It's not Nancy Pelosi in her mansion with her taxpayer-funded security. It's not, former Mayor Bloomberg with his billions and billions and his super high-end security detail that he pays for out of his own pocket. It's disproportionately Black men and women, minorities in cities where they're not allowed to legally own guns, and criminals who don't care about the laws prey upon them. And we want to change that. So Joy Behar is a moron, but at least it gives us an opportunity to speak about reality.
Maybe the dumbest person. We need to do at some point here in the summer, if things ever slow down, just have a fun show where we rank the 10 dumbest people in media. Like you and I, we put a poll out and have some fun with it. But Joy Behar, I feel like, spoiler alert, she may win this thing, because I've never heard her say anything remotely intelligent on any subject.
Yeah, I mean, it's a close. There's some close contenders, but Joy Behar is, I think, number 1.